Saw it on the news, and Lisa wanted me to ask you about how that went. Did you experience it? The dust
Heck
storm?
yeah, I experienced it. It was,
Yeah.
how could you not? It was all consuming, man. I kept seeing warnings all day long about, oh, there's a dust storm coming, a dust storm. Oh, here it is. Great. Let me see if I can pull this up. It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Ah, there
Um,
we are. Holy crap,
okay,
that's
so this is
massive.
it is. And so this was moving into the city. It was moving from left to right on your screen. This is a I mean, have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, no, I'd like to see the video because I would like to imagine be able to like see how fast that's moving, how it's
It,
churning.
yeah, so if you were looking at it, I saw the video from this vantage point, and if you're looking at it, it's actually moving pretty. It looks like it's moving slowly, but if you're on the ground, it's moving at about 40 miles per hour.
Mm.
And the winds that are inside of there were about 65, 70 miles per hour in there, and that's what's causing all this. This is all sand and dust that's blowing
Hmm.
around, and so what happens is it totally consumes where you are. You don't want to be on the road. It's pretty dangerous stuff when you're on the road. And what'll happen is behind this, or sometimes right around the same time, a huge rainstorm will happen. So that if you're on the road, what'll happen is your windshield's going to it's going to be hard to see, but when the rain comes, it's going to cover your windshield with mud.
Ooh,
So they say to pull way over off the road because a lot of accidents happen that way. But sure enough, a big storm did follow this, and it was spectacular and pretty scary. I had some screens blow off the back of my house, minor
mm.
damage to my house, but it sounded like it was a lot worse. It sounded like there was a tornado. You know how they say during a tornado it sounds like there's a freight train?
Uh-huh.
That's what it sounded like. And
Wow.
I live in a ranch style house, but it still was making the house move. Lots of
Wow.
cracking sounds and everything. It's frightening. It is frightening.
Is there any residual damage? Okay, after the smoke, it's like when we have a giant thunderstorm here. We have like one a year that will. Yeah, you're wondering, dude. A few years ago, we had all of a sudden they come up with new names. They called it a microburst. Dude, it was a small tornado. And I
Yeah,
literally watched it.
microburst. Yeah.
And we couldn't get out. All of our roads were blocked with trees and all that. And I spent the weekend helping people cut up, move branches, dig out from this thing.
Yeah.
My point is, it's not too uncommon to have a violent thunderstorm. And then it's like, okay, look for news items and things like that, assess the damage.
Yeah.
Is that the situation?
Same thing over here. We've got a lot of trees down and things like that. I was happy none of my trees went down. Limbs going down, stuff crashing into houses, into cars, broken windows, sand all over the place. Sometimes roads get washed out with sand. All that kind of stuff happens over here.
Oh, gotcha.
Flooding too. We have a lake behind our house on the golf course. I say it's a lake. It's more like a pond.
Hmm.
Real nice. That thing was probably from the rim of the pond down. There was probably a good foot before the water started. After the storm, that thing was almost overflowing. We got a lot of water, and even last night. I woke up in the middle of the night. There was a huge storm going on, lots of lightning, lots of thunder. But we've had some storms over the last couple of weeks where it just sounds like we're underneath of a big waterfall. I mean, lots of water comes down all at the same time. I think it's pretty cool, but it can be dangerous.
Let's get rolling along. In segment one, I wanted to talk about corporate America and just the what that does to our society, for better or for worse. In segment two, I'm hoping we can get to it. We're running late. I'm not sure how we can abbreviate things or what we will get to, but I do have a 6.5 minute clip that I would like to share Dave Smith talking on Joe Rogan's podcast about how we arrived in today's really screwed up economy. And he says it very clearly in 6.5 minutes. It's fascinating. You'll really like that. There's a Trump tweet or truth or whatever you call that, Trump versus Soros, which I really enjoyed because it's like, oh my God, finally, like the president actually calls out, brings attention to the evil of George Soros, which I think probably most of Americans are really oblivious to. That dude's freaking evil. And I guess in this show, I talk about the Soros effect that they're trying to shake us up like a jar of bees and let us go here pretty soon. And then try to steal
a jar of bees. That's a good analogy right
then
there.
it's just an authoritarian grab.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, dude, did you hear about this family? This is like 2 days ago, maybe yesterday, awarded in Utah, awarded $1 billion after the mom's perfect pregnancy ended in a severely disabled baby. It's crazy.
No,
yeah.
$1 billion.
It literally something like 800,000, 900,000, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
That's way different.
Just briefly, I mean, I read this and I thought, it was complete and total negligence on the part of this really messed up hospital in Utah. But on the other hand, it's like you just saddled the American people with a bigger problem. You're never going to replace the damage done to this baby. There's no way. But at the same time, is further killing all of America with the healthcare problems that we have. That's the issue there that I wanted to talk about. But probably most importantly, I know you and I discussed, we wanted to talk about the gunman opened fire on a Catholic church in Minneapolis, this trans guy. So what do we get to? I'm not sure. Briefly, and most of these things can continue on in further discussions, such as I wanted to open up in segment one and just talk a bit about corporate America. It's something that I find myself having conversations with my dog walking friends about it, with Lisa about it and all that.
Yeah.
And I see there's more than one kind of personality, but I see two main personalities in corporate America. Always have. There's the kind that can fly under the radar and not make waves, not really, just blend in. And I know, like, some people will call him out, like, this dude does nothing and makes, $200,000 a year. But they have the unique ability to fly under the radar, not make waves and blah.
Yeah.
And then it seems to me like 50% are trying to climb over people they killed, dead bodies, kill them and climb over them. And that, when I think about corporate America, I kind of think I've experienced it all the time. I used to do work on this magazine, and they would get a thrill out of printing out the first proof and seeing how many red marks they could put all over every page. That's kind of like a very good example of what corporate America is.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's toxic. It really is.
Well, is it toxic or is it really shining? Because every industry has this same kind of thing once you get big enough.
Yeah.
So if it's all the same, is it human nature then, is my point?
Well,
is human nature toxic?
It's not an easy thing to pick apart, really, because there's so many different factors that are going on in corporate America. And I would say that human nature drives a lot of this ugliness that's happening here. Worry, concern, anxiety.
Fear, anxiety.
The fear is a big factor that drives corporate America, right? I mean, you've got the quarterly numbers, you've got the monthly numbers that you've got to hit here. By the way, it's the last day of the month here, the last business day of the month. So I got to get cracking because I got these deals that are hanging out there that we've got to get those deals in here before the end of the month, right? Because, oh my gosh, here comes a holiday. It is a holiday week. And now I got to get people to sign papers that aren't actually at their desks anymore. And the stress factor is unbelievable. And the pressure that you get from above is also unbelievable. And when you're in this pressure cooker all of the time, your brain starts to act kind of crazy. And so this is really, really corporate America. In order to survive it takes a tremendous amount of attitude check and prioritization. A lot of people in corporate America have the false understanding that what they do is their identity. And so when we identify with our job, and you know how it is in corporate America, people are getting laid off
Mm.
and
Oh yeah.
businesses are closing and things like that. Nobody wants any of that. And so also you got to take care of your family. You got kids at home that are hungry. And so what are you going to do for your family? This is where the people start to climb over dead
Uh-huh.
bodies in
This
order
was
to
my
get
point.
ahead, in order to make sure that they get what they need for their family. Because here's the thing, corporate America doesn't love you. It's like an insect. It needs what it needs, and when it doesn't get what it needs, you can be eliminated. I mean, it's just a simple equation in corporate America. So people tend to lose their morals when they're up against a wall. And here's the big deal on corporate America is that somebody said this week, is whatever you're filled up with, like we're containers, right?
Hmm.
And whatever we're filled up with is a
Get
pretty interesting
squeezed.
thing, right? Somebody said it this way. This is how they were taught. They came into the room and they tripped over something and they had a cup of coffee and coffee came out. And it was like a professor. And the professor said, why did coffee come out of that? And the guy said, well, because I tripped. And he said, no, it came out because your container was filled with coffee. So in life, when you get tripped up, whatever is inside of your brain, whatever you're filling your brain up with, that's what's going to come out.
Yeah.
And so if every day you're filling yourself up with hopelessness, then when you get into a hopeless situation, what's going to come out of you is hopelessness. And so this is the whole thing, is that if you are programming your attitude against hopelessness and you get into a hopeless situation, what's going to come out of you is hope. And so I think we've got many different problems when it comes to corporate. But I think the dilemma that we find ourselves here in America with this lack of hope and light is causing the situation in corporate America to get worse.
That's kind of my point. It's why I wanted to talk about it. It seems to be a reflection
It is a
of what's going
reflection.
on. And I think it's going to permeate all the way up to that shooting, the latest public shooting thing.
Well, I think there's a lot to do with this whole thing. Is, you know, if you're programmed constantly with this message of hopelessness, then you're going to do desperate things.
There you go.
And also, I think you know the news is starting to come out on that story that
Wait a minute.
it
Let's
has to
not go
do.
there
I'm
yet.
not gonna go there, but this is important, that people have a lack of attention on them. Like they're just a number. They're not noticed. They're not
Yes.
important,
Now
right?
we're back to corporate America again. Same
That's
thing.
what I'm talking about. There's a parallel there, and this is it. Is like, look at me. Who am I? I'm important, right?
But they tell
And
you in a way that you're not. You're not
and
important. The
then when you
numbers
know,
are important.
oh yeah, and I'll never forget. I've been laid off before. Hearing the rumor that, hey, it looks like corporate's going to lay off 5,000 people, and then you're like, oh my gosh, 5,000. I worked for a huge company, and I'm like, well, 5,000. There's 180,000 people that work here. You know, I'm not going to be one. I'm doing pretty good, and then you get the phone call. What, me? And then you go into this whole, why me? What did I do? What am I bad? Did I lose it? I mean, there's all of this stuff going on at court. Am I too old now? I don't
Oh
have it
yeah.
anymore. I can't throw
Yeah.
touchdowns anymore, right?
Right.
That's the whole
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
It's like that movie. It happened one night in Hollywood. DiCaprio was this movie star that he thought he'd burned out, right?
Mhm.
And as he was thinking about it, this little girl was asking him about what movies he was in. He just starts to cry.
Ah,
But this, you know, but in corporate America, it's the same thing. Sometimes you're
yeah.
up and it's just like I am unstoppable and unbeatable, and then other times it's just the ass kicking machine, right?
Hmm.
And so, if you are finding your value at work in corporate America, you're like, this is what makes me happy. you're in for a big surprise, man. Like,
Yeah.
don't let your job be the thing that causes you to be happy or unhappy, because you're guaranteed you're going to be on a terrible roller coaster.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And I don't have any great solutions here. Like I said, I do see the reflection on how this is a reflection of our society. And I would like to say, well, what we need to do instead of being me focused and pitting everybody against each other, we should incentivize it so it's teams. And then, well, yeah, you see how well that's working out for society. Team mentality. It does it. Still pits teams against teams, and so then I
Do
think,
have some solutions.
okay, 1 second, and then I think, well, the team is the entire company. That's the whole thing. If we could all realize we're working together, you know what happens then? That's like socialism. Then you're pulling a bunch of weak people along with you that are dragging you down. So I don't have solutions. I want to hear yours.
Well, first off, not every corporate environment is the same. That's number one. So once you're in a situation in corporate America, we tend to think this is it. There's no place else. Nobody else wants me. This is it. That's a lie. Um, the first thing is find yourself a place that fits into your kind of personality, right? Like, you want to be able to find a job that you like, right? Like, you're doing something that's interesting to you, but you also want to be around people that you feel good around.
Yeah.
I've worked in different environments. I remember working in an extremely toxic environment where there was a sales pit. It was dark in the room. All the managers had offices on the perimeter, and they wouldn't come out onto the floor where our little cubes were. But if they saw
Oh,
that your call counts were down, they'd open up their door and yell out, "Garrison, how come your numbers are down?" So that everybody would know my
this
numbers were
sounds
down, right?
awful.
Oh, I quit that job. I'll never forget how happy I was when I quit that
I
job.
bet.
I walked in and the guy was like, "Hey, Garrison, I want you to do this, that, and the other, and do this." And I was like, here. And I handed him my resignation, and he read it, and his face got all screwed up, and he goes, "All right, I'm very disappointed in you."
That's
And he
funny.
goes,
Like that means anything to me. I
"Yeah,
just
yeah,
handed you a
yeah." The
resignation.
whole time I was smiling. And he goes, "Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do a report on this and a
All
report on
right.
where you are on this and that and the other." And I just let him keep on going. And my smile was getting bigger and bigger as he spoke. And when he stopped, he looked at me like, "Why are you smiling?" And I said, "I'm not going to do that." He goes, "What?" And I said, he goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because I don't work here anymore." And I laughed. And he said, "I've worked with a lot of reps before, and even reps that don't know their ass from a hole in the ground know to do this." And I laughed again. And I said, "Oh, I guess I don't know my ass from a hole in the ground." And then he gave me 5 minutes to get out of the whole
Wow.
thing. And I told him I could do it
Wow.
in three. And when I turned around, I opened up the door, and my whole team was there. They were all listening at the door.
You probably inspired a huge walkout.
Guy was just like, "Get out of here," and we all hugged. So that's the thing, is if you're in a job that's toxic like that, that's not your identity. You need to get out, because that is your sign that there's
Chips away at
something
you.
out there better for you. And I got to say, I'm working in a job right now, and yeah, it's corporate America, but I work with a lot of good people
That's
that
nice.
care. And they it seems like they care about me. I don't know, like, I have interpersonal relationships there. But one of the things that I've been learning is, and we have stress that we're dealing with all the time. Laugh, smile.
Oh, yeah.
When you're in
Yeah.
these situations, you got to even force yourself to laugh. And I'm telling you, Barry, that changes the whole thing. If you can find humor, if you can laugh, it causes look, this is my life. Yeah, there's problems at work, but if we care too much, it ruins everything. I'm
Yeah,
not saying don't care. I'm saying don't care like that.
I
Your
think
life doesn't depend on what corporate America does.
sometimes it does. This is, we're going to continue on because all of this actually does go together. When we start talking, we'll go ahead and start talking about this gunman thing now, because I think this is also a good reflection on the anxiety in our society. And then, God, I hope we can get to that clip that I was telling you about.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, that's super interesting. He explains super clear exactly why we are where we are. And he's one of the people that is being honest about where we are. And I'm getting really fed up with people not being honest about where we really are in this country. So all of these things are important. And it's because it's important to recognize that we have this anxiety in our society. If we want to actually deal with it the best that we can, and it's going to be really hard. I will also say about Dave Smith's recording that I want to share. The part that I don't have is at the end. And at the end of that Rogan episode, which I do encourage you to listen to, he gives a very positive assessment of where we are because legacy media is freaking dead. Not only are they dead, everyone believes that they were lying to us about everything. So there's a huge awareness going on now. And that's very, very important. So if we can stop getting the BS crammed up our asses about how great this economy is, while all of us are having a hard time paying for our groceries or buying a car or a house, then maybe we can start nudging our politicians and the society in a direction of correcting its course. But as long as we're going to participate in the lie, that's not going to happen. So
well said.
Let's talk about this gunman thing. I want to go ahead and, because I did research on my own and I got some things to say about it, but I know you do, and I want you to go ahead and kick it off about the gunman in Minneapolis. I don't remember some of the latest details. Lisa's telling me he had a manifesto, don't they all? I didn't realize that. And he's trans, maybe regretted the trans thing. Clue me in on that, Merle.
Not sure if he regretted the trans thing. Here's what I'm getting is that this person was full of hate for everybody. They did find a manifesto. They found all kinds of other writings. He hates everybody. He hates Christianity. He hates
you say
Judaism,
hates a prison. Isn't he dead?
He's dead.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, he committed suicide. But this is what they found on his social media and also on the weapons that he used. He had stuff on the weapons about killing Donald Trump. He had stuff about where's your God now on one of his guns that he used to kill these people. This was a person that had gone he's trans. He goes by Robin, right? And apparently his mother had signed some papers so that he now would be viewed as a she. And my thing is this: how is it that if the police could find all of that information so quickly about his beliefs, how is it that the parents didn't see this, especially if they know that he's trans? Wouldn't that give you a reason to, hey, just make sure that he's okay? It's a pretty traumatic kind of thing to make a change like that. And if he had all of that hatred in him, I wonder how they didn't notice that.
I think there's a lot of things there, and this goes back to the reflection on society. And God, it's a huge conversation. I mean, I'm going to open up with saying, yesterday I listened to the latest Timcast IRL podcast, if I have that right. Tim Pool is a moderate. He's gone. Do you know him? He's got the wool hat on all the time. I'm really shocked. I mean, he's really a huge podcaster.
Tim Pool.
And he's very moderate, but during all of the craziness of the left that has transpired mostly since COVID and all that, he's gotten huge for exposing a lot of that. And he's got a couple podcasts, and on this one he has guests on, and they're very right leaning. Now, I don't want to say very. But they're right leaning. They had a conversation about this yesterday, and they open up with saying, yeah, you know about this trans gunman in Minneapolis. And the entire rest of the hour and a half, all they did was talk about the trans issue. And it's like, wait a minute. I thought this was about the shootings. And this got me thinking that this is what always happens. Is something like the last 2 or 3 public shootings like this weren't trans. I know Fox News wasn't covering them. I could look that up. But if it's trans, then they look it up and then they just talk about trans. And
yeah.
So here's my point is that I'm trying to condense this all because of time. But I pulled up some charts and stuff on my own. I'm not talking about what I read, just my own curiosity and stuff. And about gun-related deaths from 1970 to present. And as you see on this chart, at 2000, we started going up. At 2010, we started doing a major uptick. As I recall, in 2012 was the huge takeoff in social media.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And that's the correlation. I'll bet you, and I didn't do it yet, but I was going to try to find the time to do a chart on social media. And I'll bet you can almost overlay this.
Well, and we saw from exactly that point, teen suicide started to go berserk as well, and, especially among females. And this is also take a look at you're right there. 2010, 2008 was where the big financial crash happened.
Oh,
with,
yes.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and that changed society.
Because it was the first major robbing of the middle class.
Well, it was the biggest one up to that point.
Then we had a bigger one. It was called COVID.
This was like a tsunami of bailout that happened that the American taxpayers had to pay for, and that's what caused mass inflation. And anyway, so all of these things are tied together because, look, this is boom and bust. What happens with the bankers and boom and bust, that's what happened in 2008, is that it allows them, because of manipulation of currency and interest, it allows them to buy what they couldn't buy before for pennies on the dollar. Right. And so what they do, look, State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock own 80% of the companies in the world. How did they do that? They did it through this.
And they're buying up our private property now too.
That's right. And now look what happened is that once that happened, they were able to take over all of our communication systems and levers around that. And it had this impact that we're looking at on society.
And look at this.
It's become what we've become is a death cult society.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what happened as a result of the piracy that's going on, and it still continues today.
So this next chart is gun-related deaths in children age 16, under 16, / under 18. I forget. I tried to get under 16 because I didn't want to get into 17, 18, and 19 because you just call that gang-related crap. I mean, it gets a little distorted. I wanted more about the school shooting type of stuff. Yeah. But they manipulate those numbers. They want the 17, 18, and 19 years old in there so that the numbers look more stark. So I'm sorry, that kind of manipulation is in here. Nonetheless, from 2000 to 2010, stunning. It's a mild uptick. Well, look at 1970 to 90. It's like, wow, we're not going the right direction. Now, check that out. Isn't that interesting that during the 90s, a major downtick? I don't know why. But it was pre-internet. You could say that. And then after 2010 to 2020 is just skyrockets, and that's when social media took off coincidentally.
That's exactly right.
And then 2020 to now, it is almost straight up.
I mean, it's like a rocket.
It is. So that's really just absolutely horrifying. And go ahead.
Let me just say this, that this smacks of mental health problems, really,
Yes.
is what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Everybody wants to blame this on guns. Guns don't shoot people, people shoot people. And what we have is a mental health problem here.
Think we also have a gun problem.
Well,
I think everything should be on the table when you see a chart skyrocket like that.
Obviously,
That's my point
everything
about the
should be
party
on the
BS.
table, but I don't think that. I think that people are the problem here. And yes, they can use guns to kill people. They can use knives. They can use cars. We've
Mhm.
seen all kinds of things that they can use. But if the people didn't have that in their hearts, it wouldn't happen. So how does it get in their hearts? Here's something that I read about this shooting is that this person seemed to be very obsessed with other mass shootings and really looking into them and celebrating those people. And to your point earlier, you were saying, I thought it was about this shooting and this kids that died. Why are we talking about the trans thing? See, what happens in the media is that we glorify the evil deed and the person that did the evil deed. And that actually is spawning other copycats. That there is some kind of mental problem here where when a person with that problem sees another person do it, they want to do the same
Mhm.
exact
Mhm.
thing. And even this last one, Catholic school shooting, where the female that says that she's a man now shoots those little kids. She had a manifesto, and in it, she was talking about how she wanted to be this hero after she was dead, even having her bedroom be like a museum for people to see. So it was all about her and getting attention for herself. And this is where the mental problem really starts. I don't think it's just I think the trans thing might be a fruit of the deeper problem that lots of young people are having right now, not just trans people. Like this is a big problem, and it's a mental health problem. We need to look at what's happening with our young people.
What I think, Merle, is that nothing should be off the table when you see a chart that goes straight up like that. Everything,
Agreed.
everything plays a factor, and you know what I call that? Death by a thousand pinpricks. I
Well,
think that methodology has been successful in America. That is what China has helped permeate our society with is all of this confusion in
oh,
social
absolutely.
media, all
Yes.
of the bots. There's estimations that in Twitter, something like 75% or more of the tweets that you see on there are actual bots. I know that
Yeah.
a few years ago, Rogan used to quote this
You're
all the
right about
time.
this. Yeah.
19 out of 20 major Christian website sites on Facebook were bot farms. They were
Hmm.
fake.
Mm.
We death by a thousand pinpricks. So my
No, no,
point is,
makes
it's
sense.
not a
Yeah.
trans problem. It's not only a trans problem. It is not a gun problem. I think we have to look at the background checks and all of that because I'm hearing all the time anybody can get a gun at all these different fairs and all that. So
That's funny. I found that not to be true.
okay,
I've
but okay, that's a whole nother. Now you're going to say no, that's not a problem. Bet you it is,
Oh,
but we
I'm
don't
I'm
have
not saying
time
it's
for
that's
it.
not what I said. I said my experience is different than that, is what I said. I've gone to these gun shows and bought, and you couldn't just buy a gun. You got to go through the background check. You got to do all of that stuff, even at these gun shows. So I don't know what shows they're talking about that do that.
Okay. But we definitely have a mental health problem in this country. We have a parent. I'm the only one that ever talks about it. We have a parenting problem. We don't know how to parent our kids. You said a few minutes ago, how did you not see the signs with this kid? All the turmoil,
Exactly. Don't you
dude.
talk to them?
Here's if I were, I think about this all the time. Being a parent of a teenager today would be horrifying. And if my kid went to school as John and came back as Jane, I swear to God, I don't know what I would do with that.
Don't either. I do not either. I think that before something like that happens, you got to have a relationship with your kid. You know what I mean? Like that seems to be the real problem here is that no one's really talking to their kids. one thing that, and I think time, maybe corporate America has a lot to do with that. Everybody's
Yeah.
worn out and working
Yeah.
too hard.
They
Everybody's,
took
you
all of
got to
our
have two
money.
jobs, right?
Yeah.
That's because of the inflation and all that kind of stuff. But I remember growing up, I had dinner with my parents at the dinner table almost every night. And that was a big place where
Yeah,
my
same.
parents could be looking me right in the eye and having like deep conversations with me to find out where my head was. And
Right.
they took that pretty seriously. And I hated that they took it so seriously
I
because
know,
I just wanted
same
to do my
here.
own thing,
I
right?
know,
But
same here.
they loved me too much to allow that. So,
Right.
but it seems like parents have forgotten that that's what you need to do.
Right.
Because if these parents had been doing that, and plus, like signing a paper to allow your child to identify as a different gender should be a pretty big red flag that your kid might be having some huge problems here.
Oh
I
God,
would
that
be
goes without
looking
saying.
into that kind of thing. But what's happened is that the society has convinced everybody that no, that's a natural thing. You shouldn't. If you look into it, then you're a hater. And so this is
That's
the
also silly.
it is silly, but that's what's really happening. And people are so afraid of, oh, I don't want to be called out as a hater or as a bigot.
Exactly, but this is getting so old. I
Oh,
just wanted to
sure,
tell
I
you
agree.
just briefly when we went to this tiny Protestant church when I was a kid out in Painesville.
Yeah,
Our minister, I guess you called him a
yeah.
minister, I forget.
Yeah.
He quit and got a sex change operation. Yeah.
Oh my
Like, so that's like
gosh.
the late 70s there. And like, it was
Wow.
like you heard of a sex change operation, but you like
Right.
never knew, nobody knew anybody. Like,
Oh no, I never
and here we
did.
are 50
I
years
mean,
later, and in
holy
this.
cow.
But my real point is look, nature doesn't make that many mistakes. I mean, you get a freak thing
Right.
that happens here and there and all that. So this is obviously largely man-made, and again, it's purposeful. I'm going to say again, I think it goes back to the death by 1,000 pinpricks.
No, no, you got a great point right there. That is what's happening. And then you look at the response here. I mean, you've got two sides of the same coin, it seems like the liberal side, the conservative side. The conservative side is, hey, he's a trans, and then the liberal side is
Yeah,
like
guns,
doubling
guns.
down on this. New York Times came out with this. I think this is interesting. This is how they framed it. Ms. Westman, 23, lived in a three-story brick building in a complex in Richfield, a suburb just south of the church. As a 17-year-old, she filed a court document to change her first name to Robin from Robert. It was also signed by her mother. The document noted that Ms. Westman identified as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. On social media, some conservative activists have seized on the shooter's gender identity to broadly portray transgender people as violent or mentally ill. This is the kind of thing, this back and forth, to attacking transgender ideology, defending transgender ideology. Meanwhile, there's two little kids that are dead.
Oh,
Like that's the
yeah.
story,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's the
that was my point. Right, right. I totally agree with that.
this whole thing about attacking prayer too. The mayor of the city. We don't need your prayers and thoughts right now. They were already praying, and it's like, well, why use this opportunity to attack prayer? That
Again, I
just
think you
seems
said it.
so
It's an
heavy.
opportunity. Yeah.
Right, right. Like let's be human beings for a change. And this is a tragic situation where two families just lost their little kid. They had so many hopes and dreams for these children, and now they're snuffed out
I
because of
can't
the
imagine.
stupid hatred that's going on and this mental of deterioration that's happening. And I believe the big result is social media. I mean,
Mm,
it's
I think
it's
I
light on
think
these kids.
I think it's a probably a really up there in the priority list, pretty high. But I think there's like you could put about 20 bullet points to this.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
All right, dude. Really running out of time. Do you want to do this clip? I think you'll
Let's
really
do it.
like
Yeah,
it.
I think it's important.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're gonna like this a lot. So, guys, try to pay attention because it's 6.5 minutes that of really solid stuff. And Merlin, I want to talk with you about it after.
Okay.
And America had, at least on the homeland, hadn't really been touched. And we had like a wild amount of the world's gold. And so the deal was essentially that like we will peg the dollar to gold at $35 an ounce. Everyone else can peg their currency to the dollar. And then the dollars are refundable. You know, you can get an ounce for $35. And so that, you know, was whatever. There were problems with the Bretton Woods Agreement, but that was what stood from after World War II so from 1944 to 1973 or 1971 when he took us off the gold standard. And so essentially what happened was through the 60s, we started cheating. And it became very obvious to the world that we were like, you know, in the 1960s, you're like, you have the Great Society. So we created Medicare and Medicaid, and we went to the moon.
That's where it started
and we were
going
fighting
south.
the war in Vietnam. And we were just printing money for all of this, which is, you know, what we still do to this day. But so essentially the Europeans started looking at us and they were like, I don't think you got enough gold to cover all these dollars that you're printing around.
Wasn't that a thing where they were going to like do an audit of Fort Knox that we never heard about?
Well, what I know is that I'm pretty sure it was the French, might have been the British too. It was definitely the French. The French basically called our bluff. And they just went, okay, we'll take gold. You know, we got all these dollars. We'll take gold. We get an ounce for every $35 dollars that we have. Yeah. And we have quite a lot. And that's when Nixon went, no. Like, no. He just basically defaulted in front of the entire world, and he said he's temporarily suspending the convertibility of dollars into gold, and they framed it as like,
what happened.
You know, the French are attacking the stability of the dollar. Really, all they were doing was calling us on our agreement.
Just
we owed
money.
it to them.
We're like, we got so much gold, bro.
So Pat Buchanan says, defending his boy, Richard Nixon, he goes, well, what were we going to do at that point? Let him clean us out of all of our gold and just not be the dominant power. But I think the retort to that is, yeah, like that's what you should have done, because the decision to go off of the gold standard essentially just said, well, now there's no more even pretend limits on government.
And there we
this
are.
is why Ron Paul, who happy birthday to the greatest living American hero, just turned 90. And I was just at his birthday party a few weeks ago. And
damn, look at you partying with Ron Paul.
Dude, that dude throws it down. No, I'm just kidding. It was very nice though to see him. Tulsi Gabbard was there, which was cool. But so essentially, right, that was the last restraint on government, is that at least even then, even under Bretton Woods when we're cheating, at least there's some feeling of like, well, don't cheat too bad. Because they could maybe try to, like
count the gold.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But after that, it was off to the races. And this is why Ron Paul ran for Congress. It was when Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. And then he was like, this is going to lead to big government. This is going to be the era of big government. So he was going to run to try to stop that. And he was completely right. You know, this is what has really destroyed everything, is that there's just no, and it's a big part of the reason why I'm so angry about all these wars too, because it's all related. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913, or the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law by Woodrow Wilson in 1913. And then in 1914, I think is when it actually got up and running. And in 1914 is when the income tax was passed, also signed into law by Woodrow Wilson. And 3 years later is World War I. You know? Like 3 years later, or American entry into World War I.
Right.
So it's like,
This is
the banking system and the tax system are very like interrelated with the warfare state. Like you need this stuff in order to fight wars. And, even just over over the last 25 years, we've spent close to $10 trillion on wars, and they didn't tax the American people for that. They know they couldn't tax us enough to pay. We would put an end to it. If they tried to raise everybody's taxes enough to come up with $10 trillion because we want to go fight regime change wars all over the Middle East, the American people would have been like, no, we're not doing that. But they didn't do that. They kept taxes where they were. I think they even cut some rates during those years, the top rates. And then they borrowed the rest, and they still couldn't borrow enough, so they just print the money. And then essentially what happens is that the price of everything just goes up and up and up. And you just put more money into the system, and then people start looking around and going like, geez, why is the price of housing and healthcare and energy and childcare totally unaffordable? And the answer is because you're paying for the war in Iraq. And nobody thinks about it like that. But that's really what's going on. They can't. So for all the young people who are coming out of college now, and they're like, I'm 150 grand in debt. I have a gender studies major degree or whatever, maybe something better than that, but they got an English degree or something, and they're working at DoorDash, and the average house is going for 600 grand, and they're like, what am I possibly going to do? It's like the reason why these kids are all demanding socialism, at least on the left, is because, like, what else are you going to do? Like, how do you
Right.
But the reason
That's
why that
what's
is the
gonna
case
happen.
is because your government decided to spend trillions of dollars on blowing up brown countries, and in some cases then rebuilding them to blow them up again. I mean, this is the actual cost of the thing. And I feel like it's almost nobody outside of like the Ron Paul libertarians, the Austrian economics guys, almost nobody else ever makes this connection. That it's like, this is the deal. You can't be a world empire without having a central bank that can print money for you, because otherwise it just doesn't work. Resources are finite and you'll run out of them. And so you can't do that without having this monetary system. But the cost of this monetary system is that prices always go up and up and up and up. And that rigs the entire economy against the working class and the middle class in favor of the rich. It's just the way it is. When the value of assets is going up and up and up and up, that's great if you own stuff. That's great.
That was the
Yeah, good stuff right there. He's hitting on all kinds of really good stuff. But I think the main point is that those who are benefiting from our monetary system,
the rich.
And when we say rich, we really mean uber rich. Like this is not like just a rich. Not a millionaire is not the rich here. We're talking about billionaires here, and they're the ones that are behind the hedge funds, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. They own all of that stuff, and the thing is that war is what makes them money. And the central bank concept that he was talking about right there, you see, if we were to get rid of our own central bank, and we've talked about this so many times, the Federal Reserve, and go back onto the gold standard, the problem is that nobody else is going to do that. And so with fiat money, another country could outpace us with military and then dominate us. This is a worldwide problem. And the scarier part is the goal is to unite these central banks together to have a one world economy. In other words, no more borders. It's a one world economy, and it's one central bank.
Source's dream come true.
Everybody. It'll be the elite, the uber rich that we're talking about. This is their collective dream. And if you think that the wars we've seen so far have been devastating and you ain't seen nothing yet. But here's the thing, these central banks, the Federal Reserve was made, this was sort of the icing on the cake for the central banks. There were other central banks already in effect. The Reichstag Bank is one of them. Two brothers from the Reichstag Bank and one here in America, he actually, from Warburg, the Warburg brothers, they actually collaborated to form the Federal Reserve. So these things are naturally going to try to unite. That's a scary thought when you have one entity that can print money, and it's basically like being the banker in Monopoly with unlimited amounts of money that you just put in your own pocket.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's way too much power in one place. That's why we have the antitrust laws that we barely exercise anymore, and we end up with BlackRocks and State Streets and things like that. But one of the things that keeps this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier in the podcast. One of the things that keep these wheels turning in America right now is, as you said, the super rich are the ones that benefit. But you know what? The moderately rich are at least seeing their portfolios do okay. And so this is one of the things that I've had a problem with the PBD podcast, is because their whole motto is the future's looking bright, because that's what they're selling, and they're selling all these different insurances and stuff.
Right.
And they work towards a more affluent audience. And so they have to keep telling them how great things are. And so if you got a good, strong portfolio and you're watching the stock market do well, you're like, yeah, okay, we're doing fine. As long as you don't think about your family that is living paycheck to paycheck.
Well, that's a great point you're making. And here's something to think about too, is that these people that are like the millionaires that are out there, go back to 1929, right before the stock market crash, you had all of these millionaires that were out there. And overnight, they were wiped out by the stock market because the super uber rich are the ones that control the stock, they control the interest rates. And so those things that those people, although they have it made right now, can be wiped out overnight. And they have been many times. And still, the uber rich, they don't lose anything. They
Right.
gain. They gain every time. So it's almost like having these millionaires out there docilizes them and the rest of the country to think, oh, well, I could be one of those millionaires. Yeah, but they're indentured servants to the debt-based monetary system, just like we are. They're just high-class slaves.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put that. With Merle, I'm sorry, I do have to wind up here. I don't know if you have anything on the lighter side or party words.
I do, actually. I got a little video here that I wanted to show.
I just want to say before I forget, also stay tuned for Mark's AI tip and go to over50startingover.com and leave us a comment and sign up for our email list. You get all this to your email box as it happens. Yeah, let's see this, Merle.
So this is I'm gonna share sound here and let's take it away. I like this because it's an 8-year-old girl and her mom. They witnessed a motorcycle crash, and the mom, being a nurse, rushed to help and treat the injured. A year later, the little girl set up a lemonade stand in the spot where this happened. This was the biker's way of saying thank you. So there she is with the lemonade stand, and look at that. Oh, these bikers are coming over there. Patron. This was the girl of the mother that helped the injured motorcycle. And they're all coming to buy lemonade. I just think it's a nice thing. These big bad looking motorcycle riders. Anyhow, that was it. You know what? In this world that we live in, there are a lot of bad things, but you know what? We don't get to hear. Let me turn that off here. Oh, it's not going away. That's funny.
No, you're fine.
It's gone. We don't get to hear good things and like nice things, and then there are people out there that care about other people, and I just wanted to remind everybody about that.
Yeah, okay. With that, let's hopefully we'll see you next week. Go to over50startingover.com.
Well, hello there, Over 50 Starting Over friends. Mark Tennebeck with you with your AI tip of the week. This week, which AI platform works best for you? Let's find out. So as of today, lots of people here in the United States and probably the world have no idea how these models work, what they're capable of doing, and what they're capable of doing for them. But you do, because you've been around for the AI tip of the week for a number of weeks now, so you've put in the work. And frankly, to be honest with you, you have a huge advantage, probably over 80% of your peers right now, because you have put in the work today, right now. So as we all know, ChatGPT, probably the most recognized brand when it comes to AI, hands down. And doesn't mean they're the best. They're pretty good, though, especially the free version. It's really good and very capable. And right now, ChatGPT is the brand people think of when they think of AI. So it just makes sense to start there. It has a clean interface, and this is an interface just from my ChatGPT that I downloaded this morning. And you can see all of the things that offers, just a plethora of tasks it can perform for you. But how can ChatGPT and these other models, how can they help you and make your job and life much better? Well, it's a great digital assistant we all know, and one that you can actually talk to. It's versatile, and when it comes to learning, ask it to explain a complex topic in simplistic terms, and it does that very, very well. ChatGPT can be your personal assistant, as I said, at home and at work. It helped me fix my dryer. And for problem solving, it can figure out practically anything, from the simplest to the most complex tasks or problems. But the question is, what do you want AI to do for you? How can it make your life better? Well, it really depends on the platform, and that's what this series is about. We're going to be talking about these 3 platforms over the next 3 weeks: ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, and Anthropic's Claude. So they're fairly easy to use, but we're going to kind of go through each one, and maybe by the end of this, you'll be able to pick out which one you like best. So a couple of pros and cons of each. ChatGPT, it's well known. It can do a lot of different things. Some of the cons, they say the output may lack depth, and sometimes it does. But with all of these models, you have to check and make sure you're getting the right information. It's not just making things up. With Google's Gemini, the pros are, what's really nice about this is it's multimodal, meaning it could use a whole bunch of different sources, in this case, text, images, audio, and video, to create a response that's fantastic. The cons are Google has been in court a lot lately, especially over the Chrome browser. With Claude, the pros and cons there, Claude, it is so empathetic. Sometimes it's too nice. I have to say to it sometimes, because I use Claude a lot, I tell it, don't be so nice to me. Be critical, especially of some things I suggest when we talk. And it does. Some of the cons, though, and probably the biggest one, is the usage limits. And I'm a paid user, and just about every time I use it for a half hour, 45 minutes or so, it just times out and says, come back in a few hours. So they all have their upside, different than others. They do have their downsides, and we're going to find out what those are in the next few weeks. And it's going to be right up your alley. We'll explore all 3 platforms. And like I said, I've always talked about it. It's how you talk to the AI. Just talk to it like you would a person. Always role play, ask it to play a role for context, and also be very, very clear with your instructions and what you want it to do. So a quick wrap up, ChatGPT, probably the benchmark, right? And everybody knows about it. All 3 platforms are user-friendly, the interfaces and the designs. They're versatile and they're practical. So ChatGPT, it's not just a tool. It's a great, friendly place to start. And being AI curious out of need or necessity, ChatGPT, nice place to start, and that's where we're going to start next week. And the best way to learn is to talk to the AI and create. And I hope you do that. And between now and the next time we meet, tell me your results. Tell me what you get. Tell me your feelings. mark@marktennant.net. I would love to hear from you and connect on the socials. LinkedIn is my preferred. I am Mark E. Tennant. So till next week, we're going to get rolling. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you then. Take care.